What's going on, guys? So in this video, we'll be going over a simple way on how I evaluate and test AI systems where the end result is a nice table like this with some nice evaluation metrics, but nonetheless, why we want to test an AI agent, an AI workflow, a chatbot, whatever, right? The reason why we want to test this stuff is because when working with AI and working with code, so many things can go wrong. Your prompt can suck, you may be given the wrong context for a common question, you fail to deal with a specific edge case, and that is why it is so important to evaluate your systems before putting it into production, okay? So the end goal of this is just to have a nice table like this where it shows evaluation metrics on the context we're providing, the answers that we're generating. So the example we're using in this video is a chatbot that we're gonna be evaluating. And what this table will allow us to do is identify specific questions that we're not answering correctly and help us identify what topics we may need to add to our knowledge base that we may be getting incorrect so that we can supplement our knowledge base and thus our chatbot with the correct information to answer the right questions. So before we get into the actual evaluation, let me give a quick rundown on just how this chatbot works. It's pretty straightforward. So it's an internal chatbot designed to answer questions about an agency, okay? So here are some documents that we used for this knowledge base. So it's just an SOP on onboarding, internal support documentation, right? And the last one's a reporting and performance review for paid ads clients. So the paid ad agency that we have an internal chatbot for to answer common questions from within the company. Nonetheless, how it works is a user query comes in. So how long does it take normally to launch and onboard a campaign? It converts that into an embedding. We just do a vector similarity search. If we don't, so we retrieve the top 3 embeddings or top 3 chunks from our vector store. For whatever chunks that get scored above 50%, we throw it to the LLM for context. If there are no chunks though that don't score a similarity score above 50%, then we notify the user, okay, and we notify the user that we can't answer this question essentially, okay. Otherwise though, we throw it to the LLM, we answer it. The thing that we do before we return the answer as well is we prompt another LLM to validate the answer that was derived from the context provided. So what I mean by that is we're going to generate the answer, right? The LLM's going to get this context from our knowledge base, so from our support documentation, right? It's going to generate this answer, right, to answer the user's questions. Let's just say, how long does it take to launch an ad campaign, right? It's going to answer that question, but what it's going to do is it's going to take the answer, take the context that we provided, and we're going to have an LLM, like say ChatGPT, evaluate, hey, is this answer derived from the context we provided? Because what we're trying to do is we're doing a hallucination check here to making sure that the answer we generated and returning to the user here is actually pulled from our knowledge base itself, okay? So that's all we're doing there. So in terms of evaluating the performance of this chatbot, okay, the first thing you have to do is create a data set. And what I like to tell people when creating test data sets, so this data set is gonna be a test data set that we're gonna run our chatbot on. So the query column right here, let me just bold this. The query column right here, right? This is going to be every question that we're going to throw in the chatbot to test its results. And what we're going to do with the answer is write our ideal answer for this. And what I really, really recommend, and it's generally harder to do because usually this person is not going to be involved, is having someone else who's not involved with this chatbot, not involved with making the documentation, write the actual test data set. Reason being is it significantly reduces bias. Because let's say I was the one that wrote all these documents, right? And I know that these documents are inside our knowledge base. What would I do? Well, I'm gonna fucking naturally write questions biasly that come from this knowledge base because that's just what I've been used to working with. So what if you get someone else that's at your company, let's say an AM in this case, and say, hey, write me 30 questions with 30 answers. Write me your 30 most common questions that you get from clients with the correct answer of what it should be. That way, you get an actually unbiased test data set of 30 common questions that are coming from your clients on a daily basis, let's say, with an actual answer from your account manager that's, again, answering these questions on a daily basis manually, because that's what this tool would be for, right? So yeah, I highly recommend is whoever's to get someone not working on the chatbot to actually generate the test data set. So yeah, for this scenario, again, this is just a dummy case. I wrote down 30 questions with answers. And I purposely threw in some ones where I said I'm not able to answer this question based on the context provided because I know what I'm testing here is essentially, like, again, I put in like bullshit, like how to cook the perfect risotto, right? What I'm testing here is our fallbacks, right? Because again, in our actual chatbot, we have these fallbacks where if we're not providing correct context, we have a fallback message to saying that like, hey, like this, we can't answer this question essentially. And in my code, that's just how I set the response to be, the fallback message to be. So if it can't answer it, or the answer that we generate is not derived from the context, it's just gonna say, I'm not able to answer this question based on the context provided, okay? So I threw those just for tests, and these ones too, again, I purposely threw these in with a correct answer, but these are actually not in our, not in our knowledge base whatsoever. Because I built this knowledge base and I know what documentation's in it, I can like put questions where I know it will fail, essentially, which is good, but also bad because when we test it live, I want to get a good, true like evaluation score of like how well this actually did with an unbiased data set. Again, so the best way to generate an unbiased data set is having unbiased questions with unbiased answer, like unbiased questions with unbiased expected answers for these questions. And the way you do that is you get someone that's not even fucking relevant to this project, that doesn't know what documents we threw in here, what, like anything about this. And here are the two metrics I like to track. So one is going to be answer similarity. So what answer similarity is, it's going to generate a score of 1 through 3, okay? And it's going to be evaluating the answer that we provided, okay? So what we're comparing is, remember in our test data set, we actually have answers, that, like ideal answers that we want the chatbot to actually generate based off the question, so the query right here, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to compare the ideal answer with the actual generated answer, okay? And we're going to have an LLM, so like say ChatGPT, Claude, whatever it may be, evaluate it on a scale of 1 through 3. 1 being incorrect, so the generated answer is factually incorrect, contains contradictions, or completely misses the key points of the expected answer. 2 is partially correct, the generated answer is like factually correct, captures some key points from the expected answer, but it is missing some significant information or is not as comprehensive, okay? 3 is fully correct and has the entire thing, all right? The next metric I like to track is context relevance, and I talk about this a lot throughout my videos. So we're gonna scale again, same situation. What we're gonna do, so we're gonna give the LM the question that we wanna answer and the context that we provide to help answer the question. So again, going back to the chatbot, that's gonna be this step here when we embed. So again, when we embed this question, the user's question, and get the top 3 similar chunks from our vector store, we're gonna evaluate we haven't answered shit yet, okay, at this point. We're gonna evaluate the question, compare the question, and compare the information from our knowledge base, so from our supporting documentation that we acquired. We're gonna evaluate those and see if those, using an LLM, to evaluate if that context is helpful in generating an answer for that specific question, okay? So yeah, going back to the score, it's gonna be rated a 1 if the context is completely unrelated to the question, so it doesn't contain any information that can help answer the question, and it's just a completely different topic. Number 2, it's gonna be semi-related, so it's gonna give it a scale of 2. So it's going to give it a score of 2 if it's semi-related. The context does touch upon the general topic of the question, but lacks the specific details needed to form a complete answer. And 3, it's directly related. The context contains specific facts, details, or steps that directly addresses the question and can be used to formulate a comprehensive answer to the question. Okay? But yeah, so I like to just use the scale of 1 to 3 just because, I don't know, I like it. Like, you guys can test your own type of scales. Yeah, and the way I do this, and the way how I create this actual table is I use Langsmith. So if you guys don't know what Langsmith is, I use it a lot just to help evaluate like AI systems I build out. What I really like about Langsmith is that you can actually see like, because again, if you go back to this chat, but there's a full flow of data going through. Like a question comes in, we're retrieving data from our knowledge base, we're throwing it to an LLM, or if not, if there's no chunks if there's no similar chunks, we're not throwing it to an LLM. Like there's a lot of routes like this can go through. And what I like about Langsmith is that you can trace the entire route as the query comes in. So it shows like everything. Like you can go through all this. It's super sick, right? Like from generating the answer to validating the answer, the forming the final output. Like it gives you a nice sweet overview of just how everything is flowing through as the questions getting answered. But yeah, I really like using Langsmith nonetheless to just do an initial check. Like there's 2 ways to evaluate it. I like to use Langsmith, and one is the dashboards. And I already have a video on creating live dashboards for AI systems, which I can link that in the description as well. But nonetheless, yeah, Langsmith's a nice way where it shows like the latency too of everything, the cost. But yeah, and I like to just see the average score across all our questions. Like what are we getting for answer similarity? What are we getting for context relevance? Shit like that. So obviously and purposely, because I put in questions that would get it wrong, our score is not that great. But nonetheless, like it just gives you a nice overview of everything when we're just, again, evaluating the systems, see what we're doing correctly, what we're doing wrong. Because look, anything that we're not providing good context or we're not getting the answer right, we can see what question that is. And all we have to do now is go back to our knowledge base, fill that shit in with the correct information. That way, when we test this again, we can see, are we pulling in the information that we put in to help answer this question now, right? We're almost like creating it's not like what I like to tell people with AI systems, it's not like a one-time build, right? It is, you build it once, you test it on a large data set, you evaluate the performance on this said data set. Where it fucks up, you improve it by putting more information into the knowledge base to help improve it, get more context, to help it answer questions that I got wrong in the past. And again, you put in this new knowledge, you put in this new information, you put in these new supporting docs, and now it improves. And of course, so we can always add different questions to this test data set as well. But yeah, guys, I'll throw in a quick script on how I did it, because this is the script I used right here. So pretty basic script, nothing like crazy, to be honest. Like, I just used Cursor to help write this, to be honest with you, for Langsmith. That is pretty much the end of this video. But yeah, guys, really hope you guys enjoyed this, and thank you guys so much.